How's it going, everyone? I'm out in Connemara today, one of my favourite locations, about an hour and a half from where I live. Not that hard to get to, and it's great for filming, and it's brilliant for filming driving. So what I'm going to do today is share with you guys some of my best tips and techniques that I've learned over the years from filming myself behind the wheel of the car. So time to sit in and buckle up and get some really cool ideas here on how to film yourself whilst driving a car. Let's do it. Alright, so I'm going to start with a very basic tripod setup here. Now it might look like I just shoved the tripod into the footwell, but that's not the case if you look closer. Firstly, I've widened two of the legs as far apart as possible within the footwell, and then I angled the third leg up and wedged it into the front seat, letting the neck of the tripod rest against the glove box. That way the tripod is as locked in as possible, so it's fairly secure and will get you decent shots. It's not ideal from a safety point of view, so use with caution, and I'd recommend not filming like this at speed or on busy roads. That's a safety call that you're going to have to make yourself. So that's the tripod setup. I'm going to do something a little bit different now, just to get a bit more creative. Sometimes when you're driving a car, it's not always about filming yourself. It might actually look nicer when you're filming where you're going, especially when you're in a really impressionable landscape like I am here in Connemara. So there's no point in just looking at me all the time. It's a very nice idea to show where I'm going. So let's do that. Position two of the tripod legs as wide as you possibly can in the back. Then shorten the third leg and wedge it into the back seat as shown. You can let the two front legs rest against the back of the front seats if you want, for extra security. Now I've got great results with the tripod in this setup. The camera is dead on in the center of the car, which helps from a stability point of view. This wide angle showing the whole view of the inside of the car looks fantastic, but if you wanted you could zoom in a bit and get a slightly shallower depth of field, which also looks great. Now, when you're using tripods in cars, it can be a little bit fiddly because you're always at the legs and trying to level it and trying to move it about and worried that it might fall if you take a sharp turn. So why not consider getting yourself something to help you film yourself in the car? Look what I got here. If you shoot videos and you're familiar with video equipment, there's a good chance you've heard of a company called iFootage. They make really nice equipment, and they were kind enough to send me out this car mount. So what I've done is I've literally mounted it onto the inside of my sunroof here, and this is the beautiful bit. That just slides up like that. So interestingly, I noticed that when I had it mounted on top that it was looking down a little bit too much. So I decided to invert the camera. And then it's just a matter of finding out what frame you want and press record. And one little tip I would give anyone is to shoot with a variable ND filter, so that if it does get a little bit too sunny outside, you can pull in, give it a little dial up like that, and get the exposure a bit better. So the variable ND filter really comes in very handy, and I would say that don't even dare film yourself shooting videos in your car whilst driving without using one, because they're great. Probably the easiest way to film a car driving, whether inside or outside, is to use an action camera. I've been using the DJI Action 2 for a while now, both inside and outside the car. It's magnetic, so you can stick it straight onto the car body if you want to, but I prefer to use a third-party suction cup. When filming outside the car, sometimes it's nice to show the car in the scene. Other times you can just mount the camera on the front of the bonnet, just to show the road ahead. Alright, that should be it. And the lower the camera is to the ground, the faster it will appear the car is driving. But if you mount it up on the roof of the car, you might have a nicer view of the road ahead. It's all down to your own choice. The problem is with these action cameras though is that, well, they look like action cameras. They just don't compare to the look of a nice good quality mirrorless camera with a good lens on there. So I'm using the DJI Action 2 camera here, and I've it mounted onto the windscreen in front of me, and I'm literally just testing out the camera here, the Action 2, to see how it works in terms of filming the inside of the car, and also how it works for sound. I mean, would you need to improve the sound? The last thing you want is to be recording a separate sound device. Now, speaking of recording sound within the car, usually an onboard microphone will suffice. Now, you might get better results if you use a lav mic,
I was curious about testing out the Rode Go 2 on my iPhone, as the iPhone has a wide-angle lens now, which could work for filming yourself inside the car. So what I've done here is I've set up the iPhone with a microphone, just to see what it's like. The inbuilt mic on the iPhone actually isn't that bad, it's quite good, it's quite optimized, but having a clip-on mic sometimes is better. So it's mounted there, it's a nice wide angle, and you can drive away and you've got another option. I tried the iPhone's front-facing camera. The quality isn't as good as the main camera, but you can see what you're doing, and it gives you the option of using the second front-facing camera to film the road ahead, though that's through the windscreen, so the quality again isn't brilliant. Now this setup mightn't get you the best results, but if you do want to capture stuff fast, well then it's very handy. You know, I got this teapot recently, and I was a little bit skeptical of using it, but it's probably one of the best things I bought lately. MSR lightweight teapot, perfect for camping, and that actually holds a litre. You wouldn't think it. So I have a nice fresh cup of tea now. Okay, so what we've done now, well, what I've done is I've mounted the camera very securely to both the passenger window and the inside of the main windscreen. So the camera's nice and locked up, and that should give me a solid base for the camera. Say if you were doing vlogs and you were getting in and out of the car and you didn't want to have to set up a tripod each time, well, I think the car mount's going to work really well for that. So all I got to do now is hop in and take it for a drive. So how does this look? I'm driving on a very safe country road here, but there's nothing coming towards me. So don't lecture me on looking at the camera while I'm driving. You might have noticed that the iFootage car mount shows more shake than when I use the tripod. That's because it's so locked into the car that every little vibration is picked up and amplified through it. It might be an idea to use a gimbal for another level of shock absorption, but I just don't want to use it like this, so I'm going to need to get some sort of bracket to mount it horizontally onto the iFootage car mount. But one thing I noticed with the car mount is it was really good at doing shots in which the camera is facing back into the car. Now you can always turn the camera and face it towards you, the driver, with safety first in mind. Now I can see the road fairly clearly here, and I'm going slow, but do be cautious that you're not blocking yourself, obviously. Now if you are facing it this way, I highly recommend that you use a circular polarizing filter, CPL, and what that will do is eliminate the glare off the windscreen and make it a little bit more pleasing to the eye, and that way you should be able to see the driver. Now my exposure could possibly be wrong here. I'm not too sure. If it is, it is. If it isn't, all well and good. Connemara is one of my favourite places, and I do love to drive around it and take in the view. Sometimes I never want to go home, and that's exactly what I did tonight. I decided to pitch the tent. So now I decided to camp up tonight in my new tent down at the beach here. And if I do some more shots in the morning, well, that's great, but if not, what harm? So I better put on some food before it gets too dark. After my dinner, I had the most delightful full moon over the hill just behind me, so I decided to take a couple of photographs. I posted them on my Instagram. If you haven't already followed me on there, do check me out, I'd appreciate it. So I camped out last night right at the beach here. I had some nice food, I got a bit of sleep, and I guess all I can do now is just go home. I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and I'm going to drive through this grassland here with the car mount on top of the car just to show you what the place is like. And thanks everyone for watching, and until the next video, that's all from me, so I'll see ya.